LtCol Shaun FitzPatrick, National Station.
So Battalion Commander's recon team, leader's recon, is captured behind the enemy lines. And they take him to the enemy commander, and he says, "Boys, I've got bad news for you and good news. The bad news is you're going to be executed at dawn. The good news is we're going to try to grant you a last wish if it's in our resources to do so." It's a lieutenant colonel, a captain, and a gunny in the team. He says, "Captain, what do you think you'd like?" He said, "I would like a 20-ounce porterhouse steak, medium well, all the fixings, baked potato, asparagus, and a tall, cold glass of Miller Genuine Draft." And the commander said, "Well, we have beer. I'm not sure if it's Genuine Draft. We do have steak. I'm pretty sure we can make that happen." He says, "Colonel, what about you?" The lieutenant colonel says, "You know, as a battalion commander, I've had the occasion to make many speeches. So I would like to make one last really long speech with a tent and chairs, audience, microphone, everything." And the commander says, "Well, I'm not sure we have a microphone, but I think we have a podium and we can get a tent and I can get you an audience. So we probably make that happen." He says, "Gunny, what would you like?" He says, "I just want to be shot before he makes that speech." So I just promised not to try to be that battalion commander up here. So let me begin by thanking Sir for his generous remarks, more generous than I deserve. And Medea, thank you for being here. Sergeant Major, it's been a pleasure. The commanders that I've worked for, Colonel Reddifer, Colonel McDaniel, it is genuine. I'm touched beyond words that you were here. And for those of you who don't know, I've served as an executive officer at the regimental 06 level for 5 years in a row, which is longer than any sane person would volunteer to do that job. However, the hidden benefit of that is I got to sit at the feet of 4 great commanders. 3 of them are here today. Colonel Williamson is the Chief of Staff of the 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa. So he sent me a very nice note, but he's not traveling 9,000 miles to come to the ceremony. I totally understand. But the hidden benefit of that, I got to see 4 very different leadership styles, different personalities, but tremendous gifts. And I stole as much from their talents and their wisdom and put it in my toolkit as I can, because the leadership that they displayed was a genuine pleasure to be around, and hopefully I'll keep some of that with me and take it into my next phase of life, because leadership is required in every human endeavor, and even though I'm leaving the Marine Corps, I don't plan to be in the coffin too soon. So hopefully those will come into use very quickly. So, it's fitting that I end this journey here, and I'm glad Henry Himes here today, an FBI agent. He was once upon a time a Marine, and we started this journey 23 years ago, right across the river over here in Quantico. When I got on the plane on January 3rd of 1995 in San Antonio, Texas, it was 80 degrees, because those are the kind of summers we had down there. You'd think I'd be better at the heat, sweating bullets up here. But I was 80 degrees. I got off the plane at DC Reagan, which is then called Washington National, and it was 13 degrees. Bone-chilling wind. The Potomac was frozen over just like it was this year. I got off the plane, I'm walking to the terminal, I'm thinking, I may not be prepared for this ordeal as I suspected I might be. I was running and pull-ups, but I can't manufacture 13-degree weather, and I wasn't wrong. Pretty soon, just 2 weeks later, I remember very strong memory of being in the Night Combat Assault Force. I think that's what they called it. And I don't remember the rest of it, but part of it involved crawling through trenches of slush and frozen ice. Anybody who's been a winter OCS can tell you that. And you're trying to stay out of the ice, but you can't get too far because the barbed wires are over here snagging on your helmet and your camis. So you're kind of trying to eke through, and you get through the trenches, and it's probably it seems like 300 yards, probably about 50. But we got out there and we started consolidating and trying to get accountability. So unlike, for those of you who haven't been to OCS, unlike boot camp, the drill instructors don't lead you everywhere. They just kind of tell you the instinct they're looking for, and you got to figure it out. So we're trying to get accountability of personnel so we can get back in. and we've lost candidate Johnson. Pitch back, like 2,300 a night, sleep's coming down on us heavier, and we're yelling out for Johnson. We're in a big huddle to keep body warmth, and we start sending 4As out, two-man teams, pacing off 100 yards. Johnson yelling at his name, coming back. We're not getting anywhere. 15, 30 minutes go by, and we hear a voice out of the darkness. It was our platoon sergeant, Gunnery Sergeant Wilder. Now, this guy was a badass. I know most Marines think they are, but if we're honest with ourselves, we'll say that there's a few times in the Marine Corps that we actually meet people that are the real deal. He was a sniper in the Gulf War. This guy was the real deal. And we heard his very distinctive voice come out of the darkness. First platoon, I know you're wet, and I know you're cold, and I know you're feeling sorry for yourself. But I got news for you. If you got problems being wet and cold, you came to the wrong service. So we immediately all felt much better after that pep talk. And we never did find Johnson. He had actually gone in with second platoon. He was in hot showers while we were out there in the sleet. And he became very popular with the other candidates, as you might imagine. So, well, we got in, and Johnson wasn't the point. The point is that Gunny Wilder. I thought about that many times because I was wet and cold a lot after that, and Gunny was not wrong. So I took that with me. And the underlying point there was that we asked for this. That's what he didn't say, but what he meant. You asked for this. There's no draft in the officer board in the Marine Corps. So I don't have the appetite to sit here or stand here and go over tour by tour and recap and try to summarize 23 years. No more than you have the appetite to sit there and listen to, especially in this climate in here. And that's not how I remember it anyway. I remember snapshots, little flash points of memory. And they're not what you think, not the vehicle in front of you in the convoy getting hit by an IED, or the suicide bomber exploding his, functioning his device 2 minutes after you walk by the corner. That kind of stuff happened, but that's not what I remember. What I remember is these little moments where people and Marines and others that work with us embody the ideals and the values that we try to display to each other. I think that we hold each other accountable for in the Marine Corps. The first was in November of 2001. I was called directly by the CG Mark IV Land, and I was told, so who's this? Captain FitzPatrick goes, all right, Captain, I need you to get to Kabul, Afghanistan. I was in Cyprus at the time. I need you to get to Kabul, Afghanistan, go to the embassy, meet up with the Special Forces team, go to the embassy that's reoccupying, and give me a security assessment of the compound and report back. Now this is 2001, it's not a mature battlefield, there's no way in. So, then you have a phone, I'm thinking, well, I'm not sure, did that just happen? So within 9 hours or so I was on a plane, and I figured it out. 3 or 4 weeks later, I was in Kabul with the Special Forces team. We occupied the embassy. The whole place has been ransacked and abandoned for 13 years. Except for the vault, the secure vault where the CIA station was, and actually in this embassy, the Marine Security Guard Detachment was behind that vault. It's not unusual, but that's the way it was. And so that had not been, nobody had been in there for 13 years. So we got an old grizzled senior chief CB out of Naples and flew him in, and he worked on that thing for a day and a half, and he got us in. And we walked in, it's kind of like a time capsule. You wouldn't think that the world had changed that much between 1987 and 2001. But we walked in, there's old clunky staplers and the dial-up phones, and there was a record player behind the deck commander's desk with the marching, the Sousa marches, and for ceremonies, that's how they used to do it. And there was a flag neatly folded on his desk, and a note on the flag. And we read the note, said, Marines, if you're reading this note, you have returned to the United States Embassy, Kabul, Afghanistan. The flag underneath this note is the last flag flown over the diplomatic post by myself and the charge, as we were the last evacuees out of the post. I leave this for you so that you can fly as the first flag flown over the embassy as you reoccupy it. Semper Fidelis, Gunnery Sergeant Hudson. So that's faithfulness. That's having faith in Marines that weren't even Marines yet, because he had no idea how long. It's not like Afghanistan had good prospects in 1987. So, we finally got a hold, we raised the flag over the post. We got a hold of the gunny. He was a retired Mexican by that time, and satellite phone, and found him somewhere in Tennessee. Let him know we got his note, and that we had returned. And that example of faithfulness has lived with me since then. And just a few short years later, we're going to talk about faithfulness and bravery and grit. Sometimes it's not just the Marines. In Fallujah, Iraq, about 3 years later, one of the things I was tasked to do was help to develop the local media, like newspaper, TV, radio station. We did get most of those started. So the newspaper got off the ground. We had 3 editors. The first 2 were duds. The first guy was totally incompetent. We fired him. The second guy was a thief. Just took whatever we gave him and put it on the black market. The third guy, we struck gold. Najim Abdullah was a patriot and an idealist. And everything he did in terms of putting that paper together, getting the stories, going around town, taking the troops to Baghdad, bringing back 20,000 copies to distribute in Fallujah, which would have been considered enemy propaganda by the insurgency if they caught him. They had shot him on the spot. So he brought that back, and just the consummate bravery I saw every day from him. It's not like he had SGLI or his family would be taken care of. His family would be killed. His tribe would be killed if they got hold of him and figured it out. So one day he calls me up and says, "Sir, Major, I need to talk to you." So, "Okay, Najim, anything for you?" He said, "Can I come to the camp?" So, "Yeah, you can come to the camp." Got him through security. He came in. He said, "I must talk to you about this. I totally forgot we gave it to him." Among the things we gave him was those little books with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. You've probably seen them. He was reading through this thing like religion. And he said, "I need to talk to you about this." He opened up the Bill of Rights. He said, "This here, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, search and seizure, freedom of the press." He said, "Is this real? Is this how Americans really live?" And I said, "Well, we're not perfect, but 90, there's civil rights violations, that kind of thing, but we try. 90% of the time, it's pretty much how we live." "Yes, this is most remarkable. We must have this in Iraq." And as I recovered myself, I said, "Well, that's what we're trying to do here. You work with us, and I can't promise anything, but we'll do our best." And he stuck with it. He was the editor for the next year and a half, and frankly, disappeared about a year and a half later. I kept track of most of the people who worked with us. Most of them were killed over the next year, but I kept track with my successors, and he sort of disappeared. And I'm hoping for the best. I don't know what happened to him, but I do think of his example often, and the bravery that he exhibited in working with us. And just a few, I want to talk about grit and resiliency. Just a few months later, RCT-8, the original combat team that I was there with, was doing a turnover with RCT-5. Commander of RCT-5 was Colonel Nicholson, now Lieutenant General Nicholson. Well, the way they did the turnovers, they did left seat, right seat. So it was very deliberate. It took about a month. The regimental staff, I was the fires and information ops, you would stay around for the new commander, and you'd be his staff. And then you'd be his staff for 2 weeks, and then you sort of bird dog the staff that was coming in, and just stand back and be able to answer their questions. Because you don't want to relearn lessons unnecessarily in a combat zone. So Colonel Nicholson brought us, Colonel Berger, now Lieutenant General Berger, got on the helicopter and took off. Colonel Nicholson in charge, called the staff into the office. We're now his staff. He's going to get a sit rep from us and give us commander's intent. So we come in the office, and the background of this story is this same office Colonel Nicholson had been in a year and a half before. And he was same thing. He was the incoming CO for RCT-1. And he had the same meeting with his staff. They all, most of them walked out. A couple stayed behind to deal with some issues. And as they ambled out, a rocket came through the window, blew the room to hell. Instantly killed the communications officer, severely wounded the sergeant major, and the colonel had lost part of his tricep and was peppered his back, and he was immediately medevaced. And he vowed that he would return. So fast forward 18 months, this is the meeting. This is him returning, and we're standing here in the meeting. And we all knew the background of this, so we're thinking, is he going to say something? Is he going to mark the fact that he's back, or what? And I would say that I don't know if he ever had a thought for himself or what had happened, but he didn't betray anything. He said, "What are y'all looking at? Let's get on with it. We got Marines in contact. We got to go. One, what do you got?" And that's the way he operated the whole time, just grit, resiliency. Because we're looking at him, and all the young junior Marines are looking at him, and he just exhibited that. So, those kind of snapshots that live with you, and those that I'll take with me. And finally, I want to say that, I've talked about my own memories and my own experiences, but I do want to leave with you some small indication of how much it's meant to me to be able to serve with you, the legions of America. Because that's what you are, you're legionnaires. And if you don't know that, I would direct you to a book. I know God, the last thing the expo does is give us taskers for the book. But you don't have to read the whole thing. It's called This Kind of War by T.R. Fairclough. It's a Texan military historian. Chapter 25 is called Proud Legions, in which he describes why we have legionnaires, standing ready forces. Because really, there's no excuse for what we do. We destroy things and we kill people. And in a civilized Western society, there's no place for that. Except for in this world, there are tigers and wolves at the door and people that need to keep them at bay. And that's you. It's your task to hold the line. And in fact, it's in the United States law. We talk about it in our CBIRF brief. We are tasked to be a force in readiness as the Marine Corps, and we are tasked to be the most ready when the nation is least ready. And it's been my privilege to serve with you and hold the line with you. And the other thing we do as Marines is remember those who've gone before. And as part of that, as to illustrate that, I don't have to take you back to Roman legions and crossing the Tiber, or our own history of Valley Forge and Bleeding Feet, or Gettysburg and the Bloody Trench and Devil's Den. I mean, or even that first foray across the ocean as the Marines joined the American Expeditionary Force in the Great War, as we sealed the deal, won the war for the Western, helped to win the war for the Western powers, and in the calamity that was plaguing Europe in 1918. And then the boys came back. The great parades across the country, ticker tape, Fifth Avenue, and then the nation forgot. And they went 20 years basically asleep. And they were shocked awake by the attack of Pearl Harbor. And they sent Marines, soldiers into Europe and Marines across the Pacific and conducted the island hopping campaign and put those islands that are storied names in our history into the history books. Tinian, Tarawa, Saipan, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, to the Marines who came before us. And they brought victory home to the American people. And there were ticker tape parades in Los Angeles and New York and in every town in between. And very quickly, the nation forgot. Just two short years later, they tried to get rid of the Marine Corps. We wouldn't need Marines with bayonets in the mud anymore. We had nuclear bombs. That kind of warfare was over. And 5 years after World War II ended, among this, the armed forces are decimated. The North Korean hordes screamed across the 38th parallel and pushed a very unprepared Army, United States Army and South Korean Army force all the way to the fingerhold on the peninsula, almost into the sea. And the Marine Corps came with what became known as the fire brigades, and they pushed into the peninsula, held the line, pushed it back, and then joined MacArthur's in-run into Incheon around the North Korean forces, cut off their supply lines, and pushed them all the way back to the Yalu River. The war continued on went back and forth for a couple of years, and then ended with an armistice about where the DMZ is now. And I should say men and women at this point, because women had been in the service for some years since World War II at this point. They came back, and there were parades, not quite as large as the parades in World War II, but the men and women were welcome back. They were still supported. In the 60s, the nation went into a turmoil. You had assassinations, riots, Vietnam, burned draft cards, and there were no parades for the American soldier and Marine. There were jeers and insults. And even that, the nation was still, almost didn't register it. And it went along for the next 20 years, a few blips, Grenada, Panama, Belfort, child left undone. And then there was another great awakening of the sleeping giant in 9/11. Some of you were in the Marine Corps, many of you weren't. But we have basically since then been at war in some form or fashion for the last 16 years, 17 years. And we have enjoyed, for the most part, the support of the American people in that endeavor. But I suggest to you that this conflict will end and the nation will once again forget. And that the job will fall to you to maintain the readiness and to be the most ready when the nation is least ready. And I said the boys came home and the men and women came home. But what about those who didn't come home?
What about them? Because every war has its Flanders field.
An enormous graveyard after a great battle of the Great War, World War I. And a Canadian colonel wrote a verse about so many tens of thousands of fallen soldiers who were interred in this great, in this cemetery. He wrote a verse about it, and then he himself was a victim of the war just a month later, and he himself was buried in Flanders Field, where poppies blow, stand white crosses, row on row, that mark our place. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Field. From failing hands we throw the torch. To you, Marine, sailor, be it yours to hold it high, and if ye break faith with us who die, we shall not rest, though we lie in Flanders Field. That's it, Marine. So that's the task. I pass it to you now to keep the faith, hold the line, and remember those who've gone before you. Thank you very much. Semper Fidelis.